All set there.
All set? Yeah. Okay.
I will today introduce a resolution empowering the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence Activities to reopen the investigation of the assassination of President Kennedy, from the FBI. We now know this from these previously top-secret transcripts. No wonder 60% of the American people doubt the Warren Commission's findings. No one can be certain where a new investigation will lead, but one thing is clear. The American people have proved their ability to face up to the truth. To those who ask, why now, I say first, what kind of an investigation is it when the investigator finally admits covering up the truth after 12 years? And second, our Senate Intelligence Committee is the first committee since the assassination that has the expertise and manpower now to conduct a vigorous and meticulous investigation wherever it leads. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
What difference do you think this information has?
They seem almost, against reopening the whole thing. Why is it that you have taken so?
Well, I think my own personal feelings began to turn around when on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence I found out that our government, through the CIA, had made a contract with the mafia to try to assassinate Castro. That began to make me do a lot of soul searching and thinking about the kind of reports and information that was being given us. I think there are a number of attempts underway to assassinate Castro. And we also know that Alan Dulles sat on that commission, and not once did he report to the commissioners of any of these attempts against Mr. Castro, which well could have been a motive in this situation. So one of the prime motives, of which there are several motives, I'm not saying that's the only one, that was covered up. FBI cover-up, CIA cover-up. We also have a letter now that has some very interesting connotations that wasn't known then, and that was that Mr. Hoover himself wondered, in fact, if there wasn't an imposter operating under Lee Harvey Oswald alias. And I think that this in itself means that some other information was suppressed from the commission. For example, he sent a letter out to the State Department, which basically says that he thinks an imposter might be using Lee Harvey Oswald's birth certificate. By some curious change of events, that letter and that memorandum of several years previous never found themselves in the Warren Commission files or documents, and yet very clearly they turned up the archives several years later. Now here again was a I think this is a tremendous difference. This is key to the whole situation. All through the secret transcripts, we now know that the council and commissioners had doubts that they were getting the full story from Mr. Hoover. This was repeated time and time again. And now we know that they asked Mr. Hoover to give an affidavit because they had these doubts. So here's the chief investigative arm giving an affidavit, and now the subsequent investigators have to admit that, in point of fact, the contacts with Lee Harvey Oswald were false, and in fact the whole relationship was not disclosed. And in that affidavit it says that all the agents were queried and asked, and yet somewhere along the way somebody lied.
Senator, is it that you think Mr. Hoover lied, as you allege, to cover up bungling on the part of the FBI and trying to help protect the president? Or are you suggesting that there were other assassins involved, that the motives weren't known to the assassination?
I am saying that the affidavit was false. I don't think we know yet whether it was the local office of the FBI, whether special agents, or whether Hoover himself actually made the statement false. So we know that it was false. I think it's interesting, though, that when you destroy evidence, and when you now know that the main affidavit is false, there are all kinds of complication questions. I don't have any hypothetical theory about the assassination. I think that's the trouble. We've had too many hypothetical theories about it, and I think the FBI had one, as shown by the evidence. The Warren Commission was concerned about that hypothetical solution.
Why is it that you have particularly taken this cause up. The Kennedy family seems satisfied with the report.
A key lead that somehow wasn't followed up. And then fourthly, we now know that we didn't know then, and this came out in '67, that the Miami News ran into a right-wing plot to assassinate President Kennedy that surfaced in Miami, was on tape. It said in essence that a man in a high-powered rifle from a tall office building would kill President Kennedy, and it later also said that they would immediately find someone to pin it on and blame him for the whole assassination. We also know, very interestingly, and I don't think anybody has tied this to it, that there were 3 witnesses who swore that they saw Secret Service agents somewhere around the area where another gun was alleged to have been fired. I think the significant part is one of these people was a Dallas policeman and had seen credentials of Secret Servicemen. We now know from the Warren Commission report there were no Secret Servicemen there. And this is made clear through the whole hearing procedure. So here are 3 witnesses, including a policeman, saying somebody flashed false Secret Service credentials. Interestingly, in the Miami News story, it also says that one of the reasons, one of the ways they'll have ability to kill President Kennedy will be there'll be so many Secret Service agents around him that this will help us. Now when you see that 3 people testify that somebody were using false Secret Service credentials, you begin to make a little more of it than frankly was known at the time. So I think these are 4 specific new areas of information that nobody had any idea about. Up until today, all the work I basically have done within my staff and with the various investigative leads that we had, and not the committee. As of today, in fact this morning, I sent a letter out to my colleagues on the Senate Select Committee, to Ted Kennedy and to others, and hopefully they're going to study and review the information I have, so I don't have yet any reaction.
Have you discussed it with anyone on the committee? What views shared?
Anyone else that's on the committee?
I have not. All this work up till now has basically been here that the public hadn't known about that I think have an interest. We are investigating the connection with intelligence agencies. And of course, one thing that came to light recently was a letter from J. Edgar Hoover to the Warren Commission that was previously classified that said that Jack Ruby had been an FBI informer and that the FBI had contacted Mr. Ruby some 9 times. So we now know there was a link between Jack Ruby and between the FBI. The other thing I think is of interest that relate to the intelligence is, and nobody put much attention to it at the time that Mr. Oswald went to the Mexico City office of the Russian embassy, falls into this category, and that is the fact that Castro may be using our Lee Harvey Oswald's birth certificate. So that's part of it. The other is that Lee Harvey Oswald allegedly was a Marxist, yet he got security clearance and went to a U-2 base when he was stationed at Suki, Japan. How did a guy who was alleged Marxist get security clearance to go to a U-2 base that was then secret? He got a hardship discharge in a very short period of time, much better than my office could do for one of my constituents, and immediately got a passport to Russia with this background. He got to Russia. He turned up at the American embassy there and said, and that's a handout there, but there's 152 documents that are still classified secret or sensitive in some way. 107 of those documents are FBI, 23 documents are CIA. Now, what are we classifying? The original idea, I thought, which I'm completely wrong on now, was that we wanted to protect the Kennedy family and the Kennedy tragedy and the Kennedy soul searching that would occur if we released all this information simultaneously. We put a seal on it for 75 years with periodic reviews. Certainly there's nothing relating to the Kennedy family in the FBI 107 documents and the CIA 23 documents. The only possible thing it could be is with Lee Harvey Oswald's relationship with the intelligence community. That's what's secret, and that's my point. That's the connection. We now know they classified a Ruby document that had 9 relationships. So I think there's a great deal of evidence indicating that there's some link here, an association we ought to investigate.
Senator, I want to start you on your presentation appearance about the subject. You seem to be leaning towards a theory based on the AP extracts viewing.
I think another is this States' Rights Party information that frankly leads in another direction, and still another is the intelligence connection. So I think that all these things are things we should pursue. I don't pretend to know who did it or what happened. That's what I want to find out.
Senator Schweiker, are you also investigating Gary Hoover's testimony that he had information on the espionage training school?
I question the findings because I think the findings are based on erroneous investigations and erroneous assumptions. So I'm just questioning the conclusions and the findings. Who did it, and whether it was singular or plural, I think that's what we have to find out. That's what it's all about.
It may have been more than one person involved.
There may have been. I'm trying to stick today, and I think this is very important. I'm not speculating on what hypothetically might have happened. I'm not calling on the Senate to open up all the other investigations as some other people have advocated. Because I've done my homework and research in this area. Here's where the FBI cover-up is, here where the CIA cover-up is, here's where Hoover's saying there's been an imposter, here where we now know a number of things that we didn't know before, and I think that we shouldn't speculate, and I've stayed away. This is difficult to say.